I need to tell you something that took me years to accept. I'm not a bad investor because I picked the wrong stocks. I'm not bad with money because I didn't study hard enough. I lose money, or at least I used to, because of the way my brain was built. And here's the uncomfortable part, so does yours. Not because you're stupid. Not because you're lazy. But because the brain you're using right now was designed 200,000 years ago, for a world where the biggest financial decision you made was whether to eat the berry or leave it for tomorrow. And Wall Street? They know this. Every app, every notification, every limited time offer, it's all engineered around your ancient, irrational, beautiful, broken brain. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how it works. And more importantly, how I started fighting back. There's a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner, and he described the brain as running on two systems. System 1 is fast. Emotional. Automatic. It's what makes you flinch when a ball flies at your face. It's what makes you feel sick when the market drops 10% in a day. System 2 is slow. Logical. Deliberate. It's what you use when you calculate a tip, or read a contract. The problem? System 2 is exhausting to run. So your brain defaults to System 1, constantly. Now think about what happens when you're watching your portfolio turn red. System 1 fires immediately, danger, danger, get out. System 2 says, wait, this is normal market volatility, hold your position. But System 2 is slow. And by the time it catches up, you've already hit sell. I did this more times than I want to admit. I'd watch a stock drop, feel this wave of panic in my chest, and I'd tell myself I was being rational by cutting losses. I wasn't. I was just listening to a brain that thought the stock market was a predator. Here's the most well-documented finding in behavioral finance. Losing $100 feels approximately twice as bad as gaining $100 feels good. Let that sink in. The pain of loss is not equal to the joy of gain. It's double. Kahneman called this loss aversion. And it explains so much behavior that looks irrational on the surface. Why do people hold on to losing stocks for years, hoping they'll recover? Loss aversion. Selling means making the loss real. As long as you don't sell, some part of your brain thinks it's not really happening. Why do people take profits too early on winning trades? Loss aversion again. The fear that the gain will disappear overwhelms the logic of letting it run. I had a position once, I won't name the stock, that was up 40%. Every rational signal said, stay in. But I felt this creeping anxiety. Like the gain was somehow fragile. So I sold. That stock tripled the next year. My brain protected me from an imaginary loss and cost me a very real gain. Here's another one. And this one is especially dangerous right now. Your brain judges the probability of an event based on how easily it can remember an example. This is called the availability heuristic. When crypto was crashing everywhere in the news, my gut told me, crypto is over, it always crashes, it's a scam. When AI stocks were being hyped on every podcast and YouTube channel I watched, my gut told me, this is the next big thing, get in now. In both cases, my brain wasn't doing math. It was doing memory retrieval. The most vivid, recent, emotionally charged information I had, that's what felt true. And the news, social media, financial influencers, they all feed exactly this mechanism. The more dramatic the story, the more it sticks. The more it sticks, the more real it feels. The more real it feels, the more it shapes your decisions. I started auditing my information diet after I realized this. Not avoiding financial news, but being conscious of what was emotionally loud versus what was statistically true. Those are almost never the same thing. Let me ask you something honest. Do you think you're a better than average driver? Studies consistently show that around 80 to 90% of people say yes. Which is, mathematically, impossible. This is overconfidence bias. And it hits investors hard. After a few wins in the market, something shifts in your brain. You stop saying, "I got lucky," and start saying, "I'm good at this." The wins feel like skill. The losses feel like bad luck. I went through a stretch in my early investing years where I made money on 4 trades in a row. 4. And I genuinely started to believe I had an edge. I started trading more frequently. Larger positions. I started explaining to other people how the market works. Then I lost more in 2 months than I'd made in the previous year. The data on this is brutal, by the way. A famous study by Brad Barber and Terence O'Dean found that the more frequently individual investors trade, the worse they perform, on average, underperforming the market by 6.5% per year. The most active traders. The ones who felt most confident. The worst results. So, if our brains are this broken, what do we actually do about it? I want to be honest here, you don't fix this. You manage it. These biases are not bugs. They were features for survival. You cannot meditate your loss aversion away. You cannot think your way out of System 1. But you can build systems that account for it. First, I automated as much as possible. Every month, on the same day, the same amount goes into index funds. I don't look at the market that day. I don't check if it's a good time. I remove the decision entirely. If my brain can't make a panicked choice, it can't make a panicked mistake. Second, I created a written investment policy statement. Sounds boring, I know. But it's basically a letter I wrote to myself when I was calm, telling myself what to do when I'm not calm. If the market drops 20%, do not sell. Here's why. When I'm in the middle of a crash, panicked, System 1 firing on all cylinders, I read that letter. Written by the version of me that was thinking straight. Third, I started tracking my reasoning, not just my results. Every significant financial decision, I write down why I'm making it. Not the outcome, the reasoning. Because sometimes you make the right decision and still lose money. And sometimes you make the wrong decision and get lucky. If you only track outcomes, you learn nothing. If you track reasoning, you start to see your own patterns. That's where real improvement happens. I'm not telling you this to make you feel helpless. I'm telling you this because when I finally understood why I kept making the same mistakes, everything changed. Not overnight. But the awareness alone was worth more than any stock tip I'd ever gotten. Your brain is not your enemy. It's just working with outdated software. And now that you know how the bugs work, you can start writing patches. If you want to go deeper on any of these biases, loss aversion, overconfidence, the availability heuristic, I'm planning a full series on each one. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you've made a financial mistake you can trace back to one of these biases, drop it in the comments. I read all of them. And honestly, the more specific you are, the more useful it is for everyone. I'll see you in the next one.